You ever have one of those mornings where you feel like something's off? Like the air is a little too quiet? That was me, coffee in hand, staring out at the freshly cut lawn my son just mowed the night before. And that's when I saw them, 3 board members of the HOA, flanked by the queen herself, Deborah. If you've never met a Deborah with a clipboard and an inflated sense of neighborhood power, count yourself lucky. They weren't here for a friendly chat. No, this was an ambush. I opened the door. She didn't smile, just stepped forward and said, "You're in violation." Multiple, actually. That's when I noticed she brought a camera crew. Well, her husband with an iPhone and no backbone. Violation? For what? According to her, the trash bins were visible from the street for exactly 7 minutes. The lawn had non-native grass species, and the kicker? Excessively large male presence in the driveway. That was my son's bodyguard. Yep, you heard that right. But we'll get to him later. See, Deborah didn't know who she was dealing with. She thought I'd be intimidated, that I'd shrink and apologize. But not only was I ready, I had been waiting for this. Because what Deborah didn't know was that I had receipts, lots of them. And when my son's 6'7", former Marine, bodyguard opened the door that morning, let's just say things didn't go according to her HOA handbook. And that was just the start. It started 6 months ago, right after my son moved back in with me. He's recovering from an injury. He got overseas, an honorable discharge and a hero in every sense. With him came Troy, his bodyguard and best friend. They served together, and now Troy was helping with his recovery. Troy's big. I mean big. Think refrigerator with muscles. Quiet, polite, reads books on stoicism kind of guy. But Deborah? She saw a threat. The HOA had always been a little overzealous. But when Troy showed up, it was like someone hit the Karen panic button. First came the letters, then the citations, then the doorbell rings, unannounced, aggressive, and always filmed for the records. The first citation was laughable, intimidating presence on property. I called the HOA office. Their response? It's subjective. Some neighbors have expressed concern. Concern? About a decorated veteran sitting on a porch swing? Then came the fake warnings. Grass too long. Trash bins not retrieved within the 5-minute retrieval window. I checked timestamps. They were lying, boldly. One morning, I caught Deborah snapping photos through our hedges. When I stepped outside, she smiled and said, "Just making sure our neighborhood standards are being upheld." The tension grew. Troy remained calm. My son focused on healing, and I started documenting everything. I installed cameras discreetly, logged timestamps, recorded conversations. I even downloaded the HOA bylaws, annotated them like a lawyer prepping for trial. Then Deborah made a mistake. She posted a photo of Troy, blurry, taken from our property, on the neighborhood Facebook group with the caption, "Unknown man loitering." HOA has been notified. That crossed a line. The comments were mixed. Some neighbors defended him, recognizing him from the community BBQ we hosted. Others, stirred up by Deborah's fear-mongering, I decided to let that go. But Deborah wasn't done. That week, we got 3 citations. One threatened fines up to $500 a day. Then the final straw, a letter stating our right to community. Amenities may be suspended if hostile conditions persist. Hostile? For existing peacefully? My son looked at me and said, "Mom, we need to push back." Troy, ever stoic, simply said, "I've got your back." But Deborah? She was just getting started. 2 days later, our mailbox was stuffed with leaflets from the HOA, warnings, violation updates, even a printout of our property from Google, Earth with circles, drawn around suspicious areas. It was harassment, plain and simple. I confronted Deborah at the next HOA meeting. She smirked. "Everything we do is within our rights. Maybe if you read the rules." Oh, I had, twice. Then came the sabotage. Our sprinkler heads were mysteriously broken. Our motion light smashed. Troy caught someone trying to slash our tires. But the guy ran when Troy stepped out in silence. I reported it. HOA said, "We have no control over individual behavior." Right, but we both knew who was stirring the pot. Neighbors began whispering. Some stopped waving. A few slipped notes into our mailbox saying, "You should sue them, or you're not the only one." Deborah was on a power trip and using HOA muscle to back it. The worst? She tried to get Troy banned from HOA grounds, claimed he wasn't a resident, and posed a security threat. At the next board meeting, she actually said, "This is a family neighborhood." I looked her dead in the eye and said, "He is family." They voted 3-2 to issue a temporary ban from common areas. My son was livid. Troy, he smiled and said, "Guess we fight smarter." That's when I decided, we're not just going to defend ourselves. We're going to take this whole circus down. I compiled the footage. Deborah trespassing, falsified timestamps on citations, harassment messages, the Facebook post. And then I started making calls. Legal ones, quiet ones. A neighbor who was a retired attorney offered to help. Another worked in local media. I wasn't planning revenge. I was planning justice. The plan was threefold. Gather evidence. Check. Expose patterns in progress. Push for leadership review. Oh, it was coming. We hosted a quiet coffee with neighbors event. Open invite, no agenda, just casual. 30 people came. And guess what? More than half had HOA horror stories. I passed around a QR code to a Dropbox link titled Deborah Files. Inside, a carefully edited 10-minute highlight reel, nothing exaggerated. Just facts. People gasped. One neighbor muttered, "She tried the same thing with my cousin's RV." Another whispered, "I thought I was the only one." Turns out Deborah had been ruling through intimidation and obscurity. But now, the spotlight was coming. We submitted a petition for emergency HOA board review, with over 40 signatures, legally binding. I hired a local videographer to help us produce a short docu-style video for the next community meeting. Title: Behind the Clipboard, The Hidden Cost of HOA Power. I wore red to the meeting. A little symbolism, sure. Deborah wore beige. She always does. When we played the video on the projector, the silence in that room, heavy. Then came the reveal. Body cam footage from Troy the day Deborah first tried to intimidate us. Her voice cracked on tape. "You think your size will scare me?" Troy had responded calmly, "No, ma'am. But my presence might remind you to choose your words wisely." The room erupted in applause. The HOA board voted to temporarily suspend Deborah pending investigation. Her husband tried to object. Someone in the back shouted, "Let her speak if she can explain all this." She couldn't. 3 neighbors filed official complaints. A lawyer neighbor drafted a cease and desist. Troy just stood quietly by the door the whole time. I turned to Deborah as the meeting ended. "I told you." We read the rules too. She left without a word. The bodyguard she tried to intimidate had just calmly stood guard as justice walked, right past her clipboard. 2 weeks later, Deborah stepped down. The HOA voted in 3 new board members, including a retired Navy vet. Our lawn, still green, still peacefully mowed, and Troy, now officially listed as a resident caregiver in HOA records. It's funny how people will twist rules into weapons until you turn the spotlight on them. Deborah thought she could bully us, that we'd back down because of bureaucracy. But we didn't fight with rage. We fought with receipts. And sometimes, that's all it takes. Troy still sits on the porch in the mornings. My son's doing better. And the neighborhood? Let's just say, friendlier now. There's a lesson here. Never confuse silence with submission. Sometimes silence is just the sound of gathering receipts. So, what would you have done if someone tried to ban your family from your own neighborhood? Drop a comment below. Type "justice served" if you made it to the end. And if you've ever had an HOA horror story, you know what to do, like subscribe, and remember, some wars aren't fought with fists, they're won with footage.